Greetings and welcome to Code Quickie. And today we're going to be dealing with advanced bundler issues with Puffability. So please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, reach out to me in the comments. I love to be assisted as I love to receive assistance, getting certified, advancing our skills, and getting ready for the job industry. All right. And also, this lab will be posted in the video description. So Bundler is a package manager. Just for an overview, we actually beginning the lesson. Bundler is a package manager for Ruby. Ruby is amazing programming language developed in 1995, made to be very human friendly, and Bundler is very human friendly. It's a package manager like Node. And the thing about all other languages except for JavaScript, there are usually no issues until you're having issues using your package manager. And I wanted to go over that in that lab today. So the what we have a target module, Puffing Billy, and Puffing Billy is very interesting, right? We have the definition here, rewriting web proxy for testing for testing, and what that is the E2E E2E testing module, and its purpose is to be a HTTP interceptor safe. You have a full stack application, your front end's communicating with the back, and Puffability is actually going to intercept those requests. You could do what you would like. You would modify the request, send it to the back end, modify the response, send it back to the front end, just like what we have here, Burp Suite. It's definitely much like Burp Suite. Obviously, Burp Suite is more of that InfoSec ethical hacking, but Puffability is used for E2E testing. So now it's just overview on Puffability. So right now we have our situation is that Bundler is actually telling me to send a report to GitHub because it's not able to install this package. So what we want to go ahead and do, just to see what this looks like, we want to go ahead and download our project here. So we go ahead and download, and definitely want to give out a shout out to Git. Definitely appreciative of DownGit. What it does with your GitHub repositories, because the full Code Quickie repository is huge. It's massive. All the things that our team has to show here, and we don't want to make you download gigabytes into the computer, right? So DownGit allows us to target the labs that are appropriate for our videos and allows you to download them like so. Right, so definitely want to take advantage, right? And now after the show, what we want to do is we want to head over to the project root. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the Angular app, right? That's going to be our front end. We're going to go over to testing and then E2E. So the whole lab, usually we try to do this in a file, but now we're actually using a folder. So at the end of the lab, right, in the top level directory, it should look E2E should look like E2E final. And if you have any issues, right, when you do this lab on your own, just copy and paste, override with E2E start. Right, so the situation, so now so with that said, let us go ahead and take a look at our gem file. All right, so you're gonna open up, right? This is our top level directory, E2E final, E2E start. We go to Angular app, we go over to testing, E2E, and we take a look at our gem file here. What we have is all the gems needed for the installation. But say for example, in real life, we're trying to install all these gems and we get that error. So we try to isolate. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and isolate like so. And we want to go ahead and try to bundle install. But before that, always mention that when you're doing system installations, and this is kind of my specialty, you always want to make sure that you do local installs for your projects. And you're going to see when you're dealing with issues in your package managers, you don't want to get into the system installation. That'll just make things worse, right? So what we're going to do to remedy that, we're going to go ahead and use bundle config and set the target install directory to vendor/bundle. Why vendor/bundle? This is actually a Ruby convention, right? Don't try to make it the current directory with // or // if you're in Linux. I think // is Windows and vice versa. However, this is the convention. This is really accepted as a local directory installation. Really what happens is things get installed into Ruby, right? And now what happens, I just wanted to point out, is that when the first time we run bundle config for our project, right? Depending for the user, system, or local, right? We get a .bundle folder. We get a .bundle folder, and then we get to see our configuration, which is very, very nice, right? So when we run under bundle commands, right, it's always going to refer that bundle to that config file there. So let's go ahead and bundle install. Um I wish I ran bundle install while I was speaking. Definitely wanted to try to do that throughout the video, right? Installation does take a while if anyone's referred to setting up Angular projects with npm. Does take a while, right? So now we immediately get that issue, right? And what we end up having, and let's go look at the error, right? So this is actually very nice. Before we actually look at the error, Bundler, at least the latest version, right? This is actually very, very, very recent. What happens, it actually gives you a markdown template, which is very nice. If you go ahead, copy, and paste that markdown template, definitely, I think this is going to be exciting for people to see this already, right? We go ahead. Error.md, let's say, make sure it's markdown, right? What we get is an error report, all pretty printed in markdown for us just to go ahead and update like so, right? But we don't want to bother the developers. They might not get back to us, right? So we have CodeQuicky to come help us out here, right? So back to the README. All right, so we kind of decide that we need that event. So we kind of see that the error, right? I kept it open, didn't keep it open. That's okay. All that matters now is actually want to look at the error, and we kind of look here, right? No such file or directory, right? Something about event machine, and that path isn't actually important. We kind of see path, it kind of gets corrupted here, right? And I just wanted to point out that when you see Bundler doing this, it's actually added more slashes to the path, right? This might be the initial reaction for people who are not experienced. But this is not the issue here. It's going to throw you off, right? And I just wanted to note that, right, in this lab, right, that is not going to be the issue we want to look at, right? So definitely interesting. So seeing through this report, right, we kind of find that there's something with event machine. Event machine is that gem. If you want to take a look, right, we want to take a look at the structure of how things get set up in Bundler, right? We get a vendor, we get bundle, and then Ruby. Things, like I said, things actually get installed into Ruby, and that's the actual version that I have. And then we're in npm, where you have your npm packages, right? We have our gems, which corresponds to no modules, and then these are our npm packages, right? And we see that things stop at event machine. If we actually go ahead and look at the output, right, we see that we get an error report template at event machine. So that's how we're able to infer, right? So definitely, it's not one to panic when you get an issue and just immediately bog down the developers. I don't know what to do, but try to think what the developers are thinking. And I think this are just providing this error template. I like to see in pip and npm and in node and in npm, that error template. So where we kind of find that we need that event machine. We want to try to make sure it's working. Let's try to install that separately, clear up the prod, and we want to go bundle install. But there's a lot of path issues, and that is actually a good hit to hit as what's wrong, right? You try to that bundle install, see if it works, and we get that same error, right? So another trick we could use different platforms, right? So this is Windows. This is a Windows OS I'm using, and the current platform is x64 Minji W32, right? And say for example, and we might try a different platform in order to try to get things to work. But if you put a platform that is invalid, say if you read docs and it gives us platform Python, and we know we're in Ruby, right? We're going to get an error. We're also going to get something that is very, very interesting. So let's go ahead and clear. We're actually going to get all the available platforms out there, right? So there's a lot of options to choose from, right? And not every single gem is going to be available in all these platforms, but there are a lot of platforms here. Doesn't stand to try. But before you try each and every one, unless you have a Kubernetes setup that will allow you to, deploy to have this scale to seconds in Docker, where you could try each and every one, definitely want to read some documentation before going about this. Let's go ahead and work with the Ruby platform. Usually Ruby is the answer when something's not working in a platform. All right, let's go ahead and try the Ruby, and let's see if things will work or we might have continual issues. Right, and then we kind of see something interesting here, right? We get the same error, but just notice that, right? It actually went and pulled from that Windows platform x64. And why is this? There's actually two reasons. One, it might not be a Ruby platform available, but we just know that's not the case. We just know we there that's not really the case. We're going to see that later down the line. At least I know we don't know that yet. But second of all, this is actually still getting installed as x64. If you try to mix these platforms together, it's like you're trying to get DLLs and executable files on a Mac machine to work, and then trying to get .sos and .bat files from Linux to work on Windows. It's just not going to work. They're looking for different resources, different ways to communicate at a low level, and Windows and Linux at a low level are speaking a different language. So don't expect these platforms to go ahead and work. So what we want to go ahead and do now is clearly just remove that event machine, right? And what we want to do now is we just want to look around, see what the issue. We are on the Windows. I mentioned Windows, and there's something about the path. And if you take a look at this path here, it's actually very, very long. Now the path limit for Windows is actually 260. It's actually 260, and this path is more than 260 characters long. We could click at this link and we kind of learn something about how we can override this, right? So this is the link. Definitely going to paste it in the lab in the video description. And in order to override that, right, we got to get into the registry. Definitely when it comes to advanced and Windows, hear about the registry a lot. And we got to put this in the application manifest. Definitely after this, I'll paste a link. I'll paste the exact directory where you can find this, where you can find where to deal with the manifest and the Ruby system installation. And then I'll definitely love a pull request or comment about how to properly apply this manifest so that, we can have these installations go on anywhere in the system. But actually, I point it out, right? We're getting this error because this path is too long and Windows just refuses to work. So we get this error here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this holder on the whole E2E folder and try to move it up the directory. Let me pause the video. It might be some issues doing that. So what I've done was that I've moved the E2E directory out of the Angular project and into a more top level directory, as you can see here. All right, so what we want to go ahead and do is we want to cd dot 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 dot, I believe, right? And then run head into vids, cd back into E2E, right? Clear it up, and then we want to do, if you want to try this process again, you just look how, I'm really. And another thing with installations, when something doesn't work, right? You just want to go back a step and then keep going a step, right? You don't want to combine steps, right? You don't want to combine a new feature with something that doesn't already work. That's just going to lead to more issues. That's another thing with system installations, right? So let's go ahead and run the bundle install. And what's really nice is that when we provided that path, actually, let's take a look at the config for the first time, right? We could see that when we don't have that /, we're actually referring to the relative, to the root folder when we actually refer to it. So you might as well put a /. Really, you don't want to be editing this config unless you see how things appear when you run it from a command line. But the only way to make the directory absolute is to use absolute and pass instead. And now we can see in the installation that we're getting a setup as intended. However, we're going to run into an issue with another one of the modules that depends on event machine, and I believe this is the target. right? So we're just gonna let this install, and the error should be popping up shortly, right? So we kind of see that our error is in Event Machine HTTP server, right? With this platform, as you can see here, and we kind of should recognize just the importance of platforms, right? Because on one platform, what we have are command line options that are not available for other platforms. So what this is kind of indicating to me here is that we need to force Ruby. We need to force Ruby to go ahead and use a different platform for all of the gem files we need this project. So we need Puff and Billy to actually end up coming from the Ruby platform. So what we can go ahead and do here is we want to go ahead and set the local configuration to force use the Ruby platform. So we'll make all of our gems in our bundle use the Ruby platform. So Event Machine, that was, as you can see, it and its dependencies are going to the Windows platform. Now we're going to see that we can go ahead and get that Ruby platform instead set up. All right. So now before we saw Event Machine, right? Windows platform, right? And now now we're getting the native extensives here, right? So that really wasn't enough, right? Event Machine HTTP server, native extensions, Ruby is that native platform, right? We try to get that combination, and that's where we get that error, right? So now we're forcing everybody, Event Machine, right now, hey, time to pull it. It's not going to work. We have to force this to make things work. Because usually when you do bundle installs, things are supposed to be simple, but as it is, this video is about the advanced issues. So let this go ahead and install, and let's see if we get any errors. Right. So it was definitely nice. It was definitely nice. Now everyone's using native extensions, and we kind of came along here. If you're definitely working on this alone, this might take a while too. But this is really the low-level C libraries, C# libraries, C++ libraries. I'm not sure. Definitely in the comments mention which one's going on. But see, these are the libraries that we're looking for here, and we don't. And obviously, this library, right, is missing, right? So we can't go ahead. So things are just not going to work out. So Bundler really tries hard to make things work, but we then again have an issue. We then again have an issue, and we have a missing library. So right, everyone's using the Target platform, right? And we don't need to, and we just know that Event Machine, if you use Force the Ruby platform, right? We kind of don't need to specify this in the gem file anymore, because it's actually Event Machine is actually a dependency that Puff and Billy needs. So if we kind of remove this, right, we already know Event Machine is going to get installed, and we know our problem is Event Machine HTTP server, right? So but we realize that where we're getting it from doesn't have the proper low level library. And to do this yourself, right, you don't want to do this yourself. What you're going to take a look at is GitHub. And now we just want to do a commentary and shout out on GitHub. Definitely appreciate what it does, but definitely like a service for DownGit. I wish they had it so that you could just download folders instead of really zipping up whole project repositories as not needed to be. But GitHub, definitely, that's where I put all my labs, my video, all my labs. Definitely appreciate what GitHub has done. It's definitely a way to showcase yourself, and definitely use learning that markdown that you can show is definitely a way to showcase, to really demonstrate, to have job prospects really look at your work. Definitely want to be using GitHub in that manner. So what we can do is, so what we have here is Event Machine. Everything seems to be the issue with Event Machine, right? You want to see if these repos, if Event Machine HTTP server is available. Sometimes it is, but in the issues that it isn't, right? Because that's our target gem, right? It doesn't have the right low level module, right? We get an error, right? So, but we know that Event Machine isn't giving us problems. This is really inference, which is really by chance of luck that you get this to figure out, right? And then we kind of see what we get here, which is very, very nice. So we find here, we look around, we want a HTTP server. We kind of see that our problems with the HTTP server, and we want to look around in this library. Obviously, by chance, this might not always happen, right? But usually, it really gets down to this and a few more steps, right, before you rule things out. But we see another HTTP server, we see HTTP request, but no, we want those servers, right? This is probably like a request library module. This is to run tests, that and the third, right? Really not familiar with. You want to go with something familiar, read in the description. Really lucky that I wouldn't say luck. I think, it's really, there's actually teams working on this. Actually, you know what? I take that back because apparently there's just one person working on it. But I think it's general to say safe to say that when a module, a dependency module is giving you issues, right? We have this GitHub option. So that we can usually refer to a different module that can help us here. And what we have is Evma HTTP server. So what we could go ahead and do is you want to copy this line for gem files. You want to place it like so. So now instead of going to Event Machine and pulling that buggy HTTP server, right, we're going to work with the Evma HTTP server instead, right? So let us go ahead and clear and let's see if things get set up properly. Go ahead, bundle install like so. And now we see that we're having an issue, right? We don't have Git installed on this computer, and Git is, I think it's better. I think it's better with the system installations. I always love to install software that allows you to install in a custom path, but I still don't like it for Windows, right? Because there's going to be the start menu, there's going to be the app data folder, that and the third, and it's going to leave traces of itself all over your computer, which I don't like. But what I do like is Git portable, and we could see a reset that up here. So what we want to go ahead and do is you want to refer to your system architecture for Windows. You want to see if it's 32 or 64-bit. Most likely it's just 64-bit. When you type in the system info command, right? Very, very interesting, right? So you get in PowerShell, at least you could type in system info, and here you would find that your computer is actually 64-bit. So what we want to go ahead and do is you want to go ahead, download that 64-bit, right? And we just want to unzip it. What we'll get is a folder. You want to place that folder on your path. It's already set up on my path. So we could go ahead and do is Git command. And now, right, you can see my path. And now we're not in PowerShell, we're in command line. So some commands won't work. So clear, CLS, definitely want to look up resources. But now we could go ahead, bundle install, right? Git is available in this command prompt. And now, right, we go and grab that needed module or that test module to see if things will work. And you really want to move out Event Machine. And while that's installing, Bundler, like you said, it installs there. It keeps, if you want to keep it local, it will definitely keep things local to the project, but it definitely likes to leave traces of itself. This is always the thing with system installations, right? So if you go ahead back to our testing, all right, it's actually moved out, but sometimes it will actually leave a gem file, its folder that the gem file was in, as well as the gem file itself. We'll leave it in there, right? So you always want to check that, when you move things, things are taken care of. And now we can see that our installation is complete, everything is set up. So what we can go ahead and do now is run our front end, right? First things first, we want to uncomment this, and we want to run our front end. All right, so we're going to open up a new terminal, and we're going to go into the front end, and we want to go ahead and run this command, right? So that we can see how our module is working, if it's actually working properly. Because it's one thing to install successfully, but it's going to be another if things are actually working as planned. So don't believe that once you get an install success that the module will work as planned. All right, so what we want to do is want to uncomment, go ahead, uncomment and bundle install. And now it's going to, instead of the platform that Ruby sees, it's going to go ahead, follow this config and work with and grab these according to the Ruby platform. However, even as much as I would like to do that right away, I already have an installation because this particular installation will actually take a while. So we're going to go to E2E OpenSSL, right? And we are going to try to get things to run, right? And now, while I wait for the front end to set up, right, what we have is OpenSSL, and OpenSSL is the library when it comes to HTTPS. So when you hear about secure internet connection, TLS 1.3, I believe, GPG, not GPG, right? But when it comes to encryption, client side, server side, right? OpenSSL is the library behind that. And I believe the current version is 1.1.1. Anything before that has security and bug fixes, and we're going to see how we're going to apply that. All right, so let us see if our front end is ready to, let's wait for our front end to set up. And and when it definitely comes, and I definitely wanted to mention, I wanted to speak about, where is OpenSSL? Let me actually pull it up. Right, OpenSSL definitely, my opinion on it, my critique on it was when it comes to these really low level libraries, when you're dealing with high level things like React, and Node.js as a backend, right? They're really bad ideas, full of flaws. When you're dealing with this high level things on the surface, where you get to very, very low level like OpenSSL, when you're knowing that you're using um a, a, a founded, like established low level library, we're going to see that we should be able to trust these third party modules, right? And we're going to see, in terms of installation, how you can't install anything, but you're going to notice in an instance where something actually seems to be sketchy, but you could definitely work with it. So let's definitely wait for that front end and to compile successfully, which it already has. And now let us go ahead, say, for example, we set up our whole E2E. So we're going to run this bundle exec our spec. So now it's not going to look. So now this R spec, which is part of Ruby, is not going to run the system installation. It's actually going to go ahead and run what's in vendor bundle. All right. And now we actually have an error. We get a termination, and encryption is not available on this event machine. So it is now 2020, and we're heading into 2021. So HTTPS is really the standard. Clearly, HTTP is insecure, and for E2E applications, your test should fail if your host is using the HTTP protocol. So let us go back to our README and let us see the situation here. Right. So what we have, what we want to use is OpenSSL to deal with it. So when you actually see that encryption is not available and you're dealing with HTTP, right? HTTPS is what we want to use, and we need to set up OpenSSL. So what we're going to go ahead and do is download the library here at this link, right? And then this is actually third party and installation. We try to say that you don't want to install things. You just want everything should be on your computer ready to go. And with Ruby, there's open SSL. There's open SSL support if you actually look. However, when you actually go through the GitHub issues, you're actually going to find where they get that, where they set up their open SSL. And when you're dealing with things like this, definitely when say, for example, Node, Python, that, and the third is actually using one of these third parties, right? It only just means you should use them. Two, we could actually see a not secure that. And the third, usually when it comes to it's downloading software, it usually doesn't have to be on HTTP. And then definitely most importantly, this is what this is when you know software is pure. When the authors, right, they're definitely have a negative attitude. You read some negative notations and comments. I love it. My comment, my critique, I love it. That means the developer or the developers, they know what they're talking about, they know what they're doing, and they really put a lot of time and effort into what they do, right? And I just love, and and we really don't see a good front end setup. That means you have a great developer on your hands, right? So with that ado, what you want to go and do is 32-bit or 64-bit. Like I said, use the system info command to determine, and you want to use the one that is recommended for software developers, right? We're software developers here. We could grab this, the executable MSI, and then what we're going to do is we're going to install OpenSSL. Also, that's going to be a local install, but try not to keep this in your project. Try to keep it in like your user directory or like your main folder directory and make a separate folder for that. So what we have, right? So what we have is we want to go ahead and once we set up OpenSSL, right, we want to provide that path. And then what I'm going to provide for is we're going to um I'm going to pull up what the final application looks like, right? I'm going to go to the config for it, and I'm actually going to cd into it, right? And we see that, right, we've installed OpenSSL 64 architecture. We stored it into the top level directory of the computer, right? And we also just see those slashes again, really not an issue, right? Rudy knows about this and actually handles this, right? But it might come to bite them. So hopefully, the developers Ruby, they watch and they kind of correct this issue with bundle config, right? So now Event Machine now can get built with OpenSSL support and run meaningfully like so. Right, so we so that installation once again might take a while. I'm not too sure. The only thing is you're rebuilding the Event Machine HTTP server, but now I just want to go ahead and take a look at the test. Right, so we're going to go over to stage and test. Oh, okay, Control K, Control J, open up the code, and now comment out. Like, so we want to see if we could work with Puffing Billy. And then definitely interesting, right? Table print is set up, right? We're using table print to get a meaningful log. We don't want everything on one line. We actually want to see this pretty printed, right? So this is our code, and this is some of the things. So Puffing Billy serves as a proxy from our front end, whatever third-party resource we're working with. So let us go and see if that is so. Let's see if things get to work, or we might have more issues, and I believe things are going to get to work at this point once we build that event machine with OpenSSL support. Right, so what we have is we have our application running, and then we are going to start to get that data. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to start to get some data populated on the terminal. Right, and then look at all this proxy information that we get, where we get a timestamp, right? We try to definitely hope the terminal wants to stay still. I know this is PowerShell, right? So we get to see, right? That's just Mozilla popping up again, right? We get to see these pull requests, right? We get to see all the trackers that in the third, what Mozilla is actually doing with our proxy here, that in the third, right? You kind of see a lot of encryption logic going on here. You get a cache key, right? So caching, you get a bit to see how caching works in the browser. Definitely want to point out tracking. If I could see something about tracking here, right? Tracking protection, right? Definitely love that cache, right? It gets to track against keep us safe against Facebook and Twitter, that and the third, and we can just see how that is taken care of there, right? So we look, right, we've Bully proxy requests, definitely one of main methods in Puffy Bully, and we got it to work. So once we start to see methods actually working, not our repo actually failing on build, right? That is actually very, very good for us. That's very good. Right, and really just that's the lab. Really, that's the lab. So that is like some of the common issues that you can run into with bundle install and how to really deal with them, how to really go about thinking about them. And right, some comments definitely doing the lab, definitely, when you're actually making, if you actually go in here, change the configuration, if you actually go in here, change up the gem file, sometimes you have to delete that vendor bundle in order to get things to try to work again. And definitely what I like to do is and definitely what I would like to do is actually see if you could take this E2E final folder and actually move it back into testing, and let's see if we're going to have that path issue or right. So it seems that that was the case. That cd capybara anger app testing E2E final, like so. All right, and now let us see if things get to run again. All right, so we can install in Passful when it comes to running an application. You should definitely be fine. Oh, that's actually interesting. Huh. Well, let me actually clear. Let me actually do clear. Let's go ahead and clear. Right, definitely want to clear your whole terminal. It doesn't do it well, but you want to Control-Shift-P, type in terminal clear, try to get it to work. Right, and now let's try to run again like so, and making sure our front end is actually running. Let's see what happens. Right, and yep, that is actually a path issue, right? So we're having that path issue. Definitely want to keep these things in the path. So definitely, sometimes you have to make things top level if you want to work with Ruby, unless someone could in the comments or really assist about how to modify that issue in Windows, right? So deleting, so sometimes you have to move the folder different places in order to get things to run, delete the folder. And then if you have dev kit issues, you might have an issue where you're dealing with dev kit. If setting up this particular project, you could read about it here. And yes, so one more thing, bundle event machine, right? So say for example, you don't do a custom install, you don't specify. This is why it's important to do custom installs, is specify where things put, because if you try to do a system install, you just never know where things may land, right? So that are all my comments. That's all the areas we might run into when doing this lab. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, reach out to me in the comments. I love to receive assistance, as love to give out as much assistance as we work together to get certified, really to elevate our career prospects. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.